I think the transformation that I got to undertake was probably the most interesting thing about the character. Also, the story, it's really good. The people around the TV show were really good. I'm interested in quality and complexity, and this show has that in spades. Um, yeah, and I feel like there's something about returning to uh, a character that I know people like to see me play that appealed to me about this show. But I also feel like the more I'm talking about it, the more I feel like I'm good on the villain tip for a while. You know what I mean? I've done three powerful, iconic, archetypal, celebrated villains. It's been fun. But I want to move on to lighter pastures. And this character has a little bit of that too. He's kind of funny. He's not all one thing, which I like about him. Yeah, he's cool, but also effed up. He's a victim in his own way. I don't think being a victim excuses victimizing others, but as an actor, I feel like it's my responsibility to understand and cultivate a sense of compassion for the characters that I play. And in order to do that with someone as vile and reprehensible as Charlie Manx or Thredson or Sylar for that matter, you have to kind of trace back to the origin of the evil. And oftentimes it's trauma in early life. And that's certainly the case with Charlie Manx. He was incredibly neglected and abused as a child, abandoned by his mother, and so that building on that foundation is a little bit. It just shades it with like a little bit of softness, even though he's a monster. He's a monster for a reason. So, yeah, he's got a total savior complex and feels like he's helping these kids. It's totally warped, but that's what makes an interesting character. I see him as a villain, but he sees himself as a hero. So I got to find that line as an actor when I'm working, and that's fun. Well, that's fun. It's stylized, it's kind of heightened storytelling. My version of this story is very different. It's one of the things that I think is unique about the show is that it brings these two worlds together, whereas shows tend to be one thing or another, right? They are either family dramas about relationships and emotional journeys, or they're kind of heightened supernatural horror stories, but rarely are they both. And that's what I like about this. You have Vic and her parents, and then you have Manx and the United Inscapes of America, and those two worlds collide, which is kind of exciting. All the age stuff, playing 135 years old is a unique experience, and making sure that I was clear about where in the story we were with regard to his age, because he goes up and down in age, and after he drops the kids in Christmas Land, his aging process starts to evolve again. So he has to get a new kid, and then he gets younger again, and then he gets older again. So there's a lot of back and forth, and keeping track of that was the biggest challenge, but also the biggest reward. Yeah, it's definitely more psychological, and the fear that I think it'll generate in audiences is more existential on some levels, and then also there are some, I wouldn't say jump scares, but there are definitely some, Manx has some moments. Also, Bing Partridge, played brilliantly by Dari Olafsson, is pretty scary. I think he's kind of like, yeah, he's the scariest part of the show to me. I love Dari. He was so much fun to work with, and he's so talented. And so I think it's not violent. There's not gore. There's not, there's a little bit of gore, but not a lot. So it plays with the mind more, and I find that more compelling, I think. Yeah, and the car is a character in its own way, in its own right. The Wraith is a presence, and an ominous presence, and there's shadows, and yeah, you're right. It is. It's a knowing that is terrifying. I think they represented, have always represented, for generations upon generations, scary stories, ghost stories around the campfire and, folklore and urban legend. And these are all things that have occupied a strong place in our cultures and our societies over the decades and centuries. And I think people like the thrill, they like to be afraid, they like the adrenaline that comes with that kind of fear, but they like to know that they're safe, so they create these stories. It's the nature of humanity, right? That's what sets us apart. We tell stories to one another, and we tell those stories to feel things. Sometimes we want to laugh, sometimes we want to cry, sometimes we want to be scared. And I think we're living in really challenging times right now, and I think horror stories reflect the darkness of our times in a way that allows people to lose themselves. And I think people feel like they need to lose themselves a little bit right now. I don't blame them. Sure. I mean, I think technology has really complicated the way we interact with one another and the way we present ourselves to the world. And I think there's a lot more room for manipulation and fabrication and danger in the realm of technology. I think people are looking outside of themselves much more now than ever before for something that they'll never find, and that's dangerous. And I think that can lead to situations and circumstances where people could put themselves at risk. When I think about it, like, I feel like it's kind of an honor to play these kinds of characters, these dark archetypal villains. I think our societies, our cultures need them in the world of narratives and storytelling, and so I feel grateful to be able to hold the darkness for people. I don't know why it's something that I do and can do, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to do it. And everywhere I go all around the world, people respond to it and love it. And so I feel like this is another opportunity for me to do that. It's another opportunity for people to lose themselves in a dark world, but know that at the end of the hour, they can go back to their lives and feel comfortable and safe. And that's the way it should be.